This summer, Duke played 3 Canadian universities of varying talent, but all below the average level of opponent they will face during the regular season. 2 of Duke's 4 freshman stars, Cam Reddish and Tre Jones, sat out the trip with minor injuries. Alex O'Connell, who should be a key returner, played just a few minutes before going down with an injury of his own. Regardless, these games were an early opportunity to watch RJ Barrett and Zion Williamson. In the 3 Canadian games, Duke scored 1.21 points per possession. For those unfamiliar with advanced tempo-free stats, let's look at how Duke compared to the NCAA average from last season. The biggest factor to Duke's success in Canada was offensive rebounding. They rebounded 45% of their own misses. NCAA average last season was just 29%. Aside from the glass, Duke also impressed in transition. Zion and RJ's ability to finish above the rim and play off of each other drew some comparisons to the LeBron and D. Wade Heat days. Duke is going to be really hard to stop in transition this year. These clips show RJ and Zion running the floor with a willingness to share the ball. Both are elite-level athletes and finishers. There were some stupid, unforced turnovers from guys trying to go for the SportsCenter alley-oop in Canada, but the decision-making will only improve as they become more familiar with one another. I would expect Duke to play aggressive defensively and get into passing lanes in order to create situations like the ones in these clips. Yes, the level of athlete playing defense in the film can be questioned, but it's hard to watch this display of athleticism and not think it's going to translate on a Division I floor. When Duke wasn't getting out into transition, their half-court offense was just okay. The combination of limited practice time and not wanting to give away too much from a scouting perspective were probably the reasons for Duke's vanilla offense. First, let's take a look at the 3 actions and sets that were used throughout the trip, and then we'll look at the flow and freelance when they weren't running those actions. Duke played 4 on the perimeter and 1 in the post for the majority of the trip. Spread ball screens are a natural byproduct of playing 4 out, 1 in, and it was Duke's primary offense in Canada. They had 3 entries into a spread ball screen. The first way was a drag screen in transition. Here the ball screener stays high as the trailer and goes right into the action. The opposite of this is called a rush out screen, where the big starts low and sprints to screen. The final wrinkle Duke used to get into spread was a DHO or dribble handoff. The point guard would come down and hand off to the wing, who then functions as the point guard normally would have in the spread. Here's the first entry with Delorier as the drag screener. RJ Barrett is able to get downhill for an easy basket. Delorier was the most common drag screener on the trip, and here he forces a switch. Joey Baker's man helps way too far off, and Barrett's pass is on time and on target. Here's entry number 2, the rush out. All 3 teams Duke played tried to ice Duke ball screens, which means forcing the ball handler to the sideline. Because it's a rush out, the big is able to see the play unfolding, and it gives the guard a much better chance to get into the ice coverage. Here Ryerson ices really well and the ball screen stalls out. Again a rush out, this time as a late clock play. Toronto loads up to the ball and dares Barrett to pass. He makes the right play and Goldwire gets to the basket but just can't finish. The final entry of the spread is the DHO. You'll notice that they mostly use this as an opportunity to get Zion going to his left. Again Zion going left, but the problem here is he's ready to come off the screen before Delorier is in position to set it. Still, Delorier does a good job of flipping his hips, and Zion twists the screen for a dump off to Vrankovic for an N1. The spread is hard to guard because of the spacing, but it's even harder to guard with good movement and reads. Duke struggled with that in Canada, often being stagnant. One of the best plays of the trip came on a read from Zion. Goldwire is looking to initiate a DHO, but Zion fakes the handoff and cuts back door for a dunk. The other action Duke commonly used in early offense was a pin down. You can see the same 4-out formation, but instead of a ball screen, we have a down screen on the weak side. This action should be particularly relevant with the return of Tre Jones because it will move RJ Barrett off of the ball. Jack White sets the pin for Barrett, who does a great job of having good pace on his cut off the screen, and because of that, gets downhill for the basket. Duke really only ran one set play multiple times in Canada, which I'm calling chin. You can see from the diagram that the big man has now been lifted into the high post. The play is to get either Barrett or Williamson going left. The ball is entered into the high post, triggering a chain of events that clears out the left side of the floor. Now with that space on the left side, RJ or Zion gets a handoff to attack the basket. Goldwire signals for chin by holding up 5 fingers, which brings Bolden into the high post. The way opponents defended the play was by going under the screen and living with RJ or Zion shooting a jump shot. Here it is one more time, with Bolden entering the high post. Zion comes off the handoff, but again, Toronto just simply slips under. When Duke was running just basic motion and flow, the court often looked a lot like this. The Canadian teams all shrank the floor and loaded up to the ball due to Duke's lack of shooting, especially with the injuries. You can see number 5 isn't worried about Goldwire at all, instead focusing on the ball. Sometimes it was hard to tell if the defense was in man or zone during the trip because of their insistence on stopping penetration from RJ and Zion. Toronto smothers RJ in the paint here on the drive. Lack of shooting wasn't the only reason for spacing issues. Zion especially showed some poor offensive awareness without the ball. On this play, he clogs up spacing twice by trying to post up his man. This time on the sideline out of bounds, Zion does the same thing, cutting right at the driver. But it wasn't all bad for Duke. Here's a good example of motion and flow. They get multiple screens to loosen up the defense and share the ball. Ironically, some of Duke's best offense came with the walk-ons in garbage time. The ball switches sides multiple times before Joey Baker nails the 3. Duke's offense is a work in progress, but the reinforcements are coming in Reddish, Jones, and O'Connell. There's no reason to think, with Coach K's offensive track record and Duke's high talent level, that they won't have a top 10 offense for the 11th season in a row. More health and practice time will ensure that Duke has an entirely different look when they open up the season against Kentucky.